This is the Self-Taught or Not podcast with
Dylan Israel
and Eric Hanchett, where we teach you the do's and don'ts of software development from two software development professionals, one self-taught and one not.
You know, Eric and I started this podcast on our own dime, our own dollar, and we've always really loved doing it, and we're very proud when we have large companies and large organizations sponsor the podcast and support what it is we do here. So we appreciate you taking a moment before we jump into our content of the day, where we're going to be talking about some of the best YouTube channels and how to get started on YouTube to make sure that you sort of build that video portfolio or maybe just make some passive income. Here's a little shout out to our sponsor. There's a million ways to learn to code nowadays, and a book is one of the best ways. You know, we're big book readers here at Self-Taught or Not, and the readers of Manning Publications say they produce some of the highest quality tech books that money can buy. Manning works with experts and community leaders like myself and Eric, distinguished academics and technology creators, so when you're learning from a Manning product, you know you're learning from the very best. If you're listening to this podcast, you might be interested in Relevant Search by Doug Turnbull and John Berryman. Relevant Search demystifies relevance work, showing you how to use Elasticsearch to return engaging search results to your user. A very powerful tool when you're looking to improve and gather data. Reviewers have called it an inspiring book, revealing the essence of mechanics of relevant search, and one of the best and most engaging technical books I've ever read. If you use this code, PODSELFTAUGHT20 at checkout, again, that's PODSELFTAUGHT20 at checkout, which will be a link in the description below for it as well. You get 40% off your first Manning order. That's all print books, ebooks, and videos, including relevant search. Just go to manning.com to buy.
Hey, everybody. So today we're going to go talk about a topic that I'm really passionate about. I think Dylan is as well, and that is YouTube. And really, we want to go deep dive into YouTube, talk about some of the benefits of creating a YouTube channel for developers, some of the things that we've seen. We've both been doing YouTube for years. Dylan's actually been doing it longer than me. And we're just going to kind of deep dive into it and also talk about some of our favorite YouTubers, which there are so many. I think we could both agree that we would be spending the whole day, the whole podcast, telling you about YouTubers we really like. But we've kind of narrowed it down to about 10 YouTubers that we'll kind of go over first, because I think if you are listening to us as a podcast, you may not have heard of these people, but we're going to explain why you guys should check them out, and why we like YouTube and why we've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, definitely. And some of these creators that we're going to talk about are my sort of go-to resources for staying up to date on technologies, staying up to date on what's going on in the community, just making sure that I'm making sure my skills are as sharp as they need to be.
Exactly. You know what? When I think back on YouTube, in the world we live in right now, there's quite a few places you can learn how to program. There's quite a few places that you can kind of keep up on the latest technologies, and there's varying degrees of sizes. And I really think, there's a handful of big sites out there. Like, all of us probably know about Stack Overflow, and that's a huge community. And all of us know about probably, Medium, which is like this blogging platform. And there's dev.to, which is sort of a blogging platform as well. But I really think there's the two biggest place that developers hang out every day, that almost every day you'll see a video or something or some information from developers, and that's Twitter and YouTube. And they are the complete opposites, really, in so many ways. And they don't have too much crossover, too. I think Twitter's definitely bigger, but a lot of the biggest developers out there, the people that created React and Redux, the people that like the creator of Vue is on Twitter. I mean, these people are there. They're tweeting out. They're sending information. There's huge discussions. There's a lot of stuff happening on Twitter. And then you go to the YouTube world, which feels quite opposite. The biggest people on YouTube are not the same people on Twitter. Like, it's completely different platform, completely different people. There's very, very little crossover. We have our own community on YouTube that's very different. But I think YouTube has so many more advantages than Twitter. I think Twitter, you're very limited to what you can do, especially making money, especially reaching people. Well, you can reach probably more people on Twitter if you become really popular, but I think it's a little harder. But I think YouTube's great for developers because it's it's not as popular as the bigger sites like Twitter, but there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot more advantages, I think, than Twitter. And I think a lot of big big name Twitter users out there that have created these big frameworks that have hundreds of thousands of followers, they're kind of intimidated by YouTube. And a lot of them who end up trying YouTube don't do very well because they find out YouTube is completely different than Twitter. So with all that said, let's talk about some of our favorite YouTubers. So how about I name a few and then we'll kind of switch off. I think the granddaddy of them all, and I think we both highly recommend, is Traversing Media. Brad, we both chatted with Brad. He's just an amazing YouTuber, and the reason I really like his content is because it's just really well done. And like, he has these 45 minutes, sometimes hour-long tutorials. He'll deep dive into content. Sometimes it's not super deep. Sometimes he goes deeper than others, but it's really perfect for beginners and maybe some intermediate developers too. I know you know Brad pretty well too.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've been watching Brad's videos pretty much every time I get a new job and there's a technology that I need a crash course on. Those are my go-to videos. I've been a big fan for quite some time, and more than anything else, I respect a man who hustles, and Brad hustles, man. He's putting out these, the majority of his content are those tutorials, and now as he's sort of, it's kind of strange to say opened up a little bit, but as he's sort of got more comfortable being on camera, he started doing more advice videos, which are, they have the same quality to them as well, typically associated with the PowerPoint. That's sort of, he has his thoughts very organized, and I think it does an excellent job with that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Everything he puts out there is super high quality, and I really like it. I also like, I'm going to mention two others, Ben Awad and Deved. Ben is he has really highly technical videos on Node, GraphQL, React, and they're just really well done. He's really into TypeScript. He's also a Vim user, which I'm also a Vim user, so we kind of have that going on together too. Big time Vim fans, and really highly done. I think he's probably one of the best out there, really, for developers that are teaching a little bit more intermediate, a little bit more advanced concepts. He has a really good authentication series that I like. DevEd is really great for those developers that are looking for someone that's really good at CSS. One thing YouTube does really well is if you're into visual design, graphics, YouTube's a great platform for you because you can really show off everything you can do, and that's what DevEd does. He's really funny too. I think he lives in Romania, and he has a little bit of an accent for us Americans, but his content's just really well done. Really, he deep dives into a bunch of CSS, graphics, animation topics that I really like. Do you have a few that you want to jump in?
Yeah, definitely. So one channel I started watching quite frequently is Fireship. So if you guys might have come across this, he has around 300,000 subscribers, been taking off nonstop, and probably the best videos on those are sort of hey, here's a 3-minute, very highly edited, very easy to understand clip going over, like maybe CI/CD DevOps or CSS variables and clean code practices, and sort of these bite-sized bits of just really complex topics simplified at times. And that's been one of my sort of favorites that I've come across. And it happened where, I'm very interested in clean code, and he gave some great examples of naming variables with that, and I thought it was fantastic. I instantly subscribed, and I haven't regretted it. I probably one of the few channels larger than Traversing Media that I'd also, in terms of tutorial space, is Free Code Camp. I've been a big supporter of Free Code Camp. I consider myself a Free Code Camp grad in a sense, as I've done several other certificate programs on their website, and their YouTube channel, which I think at this point I've put 10 videos out and a couple courses to share and sort of give back, is a collection of tons and tons of tutorials. They have like an 8-hour Python course that most of their content is just from people trying to give back, and they don't run ads on the platform. And so if you're really just want to follow a channel that is going to have a little bit of everything, and because due to the nature of it sort of being an open source YouTube channel to a degree, Free Code Camp's really excellent for that.
Yeah, +1 for both those channels. I like Fireship because the guy has like amazing graphic skills, like animations, not like CSS animations, like actual things are whiz by, going through the screen. He has these animated GIFs all over the place. It's pretty cool. I want to give a notable shout out to Web Dev Simplified. This channel kind of blew up in the last year and a half, maybe, and it's really simple. This guy, he talks in front of the cameras for a few minutes, and then he goes into pretty advanced topics. He did solid principles, and he's gone into pretty interesting topics of how to do web development. And he really, as the name suggests, he simplifies it, talks it out very slowly, methodically, and makes a whole lot of sense when you're listening to it. He also is he kind of reminds me of Justin Bieber. If you want Justin Bieber teaching you, this guy looks kind of like Justin Bieber in a little bit of a way. So, there's that. And then let's jump to advice. I mean, would you want to be taught by Justin Bieber, Dylan?
Next question. I guess I honestly, when you said that, I'm like, what the hell? Really? I haven't had the pleasure of checking out Web Dev Simplified, but now I'm doing the old search to see.
Well, maybe he doesn't quite look exactly like, maybe younger. I don't know.
Oh my god, he doesn't look anything like it. What are you talking about? This is like the equivalent of saying any mid-20s white guy looks like Justin Bieber.
I don't know. Maybe it's just the hair. I just think it's funny. Anyways.
You know what, man? You might be more up to date on Justin Bieber's hairstyle and whatnot than I am. I'm not about that life.
Hey, to each his own, okay? Actually, I'm not huge into the Biebs. No, I'm more into. I do some pop music for sure. I like Taylor Swift. It's my go-to pop music. Anyways, back to YouTube. Let's keep going through this because I kind of want to jump into like how you can start your own YouTube channel. So there's we're going to talk about different topics on YouTube, and there's a whole genre of advice videos, and these are ones where someone kind of just talks in front of the camera and kind of helps you along this journey of becoming a developer. And some people have done this really well. Chris Hawks, I think he's probably the OG now. He's been doing this for years. He has tons of videos. He started off doing more tutorials, and funny thing is, I actually created a GitHub repository, which I'll leave in the show notes below. That is show notes if you go to selftaughtornot.com. That has every YouTube channel we're talking about, and I actually tried to get as many YouTube channels as I could. It has now, I think we have hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels listed in many different languages, and I put Chris Hawk's channel in the advice section, and he created a video, and he mentioned that, no, I'm not an advice, I'm actually a tutorial channel. So I moved it to tutorial, but I'm going to mention this in the advice channel still, because I think he gives more advice videos than tutorials. Anyways, he's just kind of a funny guy.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Chris Hawks. There's pretty much not a single video that Chris puts out that I don't watch. There's something about him. It's almost like he's my spirit animal. Like I get what he's trying to put across, you know what I mean? And I'm picking up what he's putting down. I love Chris Hawks videos, and I've been at times it's felt like, you ever sort of, I guess the way I would explain watching Chris is, it feels like we came from similar backgrounds to a degree, and that he's a couple years older of where I want to be, if that makes any sense. And I'm a big fan of Chris Hawks.
He has this dry sense of humor that, it's kind of this kind of dry sense but realistic view on things in the world that I think a lot of people can relate to. Let's move on to Caleb Curry. He's actually more, I would say, I put him in the advice video section, but I think he has more, at least recently, of more tutorials. But he has been doing this for like 7 years. He has created over 1,000 videos. He's gone over tons of different subjects from Bitcoin to motherboards to how to get your first web development job to how to make money on YouTube, Bitcoin and blockchain. I actually got recently I was able to chat with him. Just really super nice guy. I just want to make sure I give him a shout out because he has a really cool channel, and if you very down to earth kind of guy, very great advice. I would check his channel out. I'll make sure all these links are in the description below, or in the show notes, I should say. Let's move on to Joshua Fluke. Now, Joshua is, I would say he is more of an advice, anti-corporate YouTube channel. So he talks a lot about how when you get your first web development or first programming job, of what to expect in the corporate culture, what to avoid, like how to deal with recruiters. His videos have become much more, I would say, they're more comedy videos recently, I would say. They're not, still a lot of good advice. I think he's definitely blown up. He's getting millions of views a month now. But I think it's worth checking out just to see like what to expect when you get in the real world. I respect that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm a big fan of Josh. The way I try to explain, and I just actually recorded a video because people ask me all the time what I think about Josh's channel. It'll come out probably a week or so before this one comes out, but on the podcast. But I look at Josh's channel sort of as a dessert potato, is how I described it, where there's a lot of substance. I genuinely think he gives really great advice about how to how to interact in the corporate world, and how to, the importance of side projects and not having your eggs all in one basket. But there's a little bit of that sugar sort of, that guilty pleasure that goes along with Joshua Fluke, and whether it's his corporate cringe videos or whatever it is. But that's, I like Josh. I think he's doing. I think he's a little at times a little, for lack of a better word, salty. But he seems to have a good heart and seems to be giving good advice. So I'm glad to see somebody sort of take up that mantle.
For sure. And he definitely this is a niche that was underserved. Like no one had gone after this very unique style of videos talking about corporate cringe. Like no one did that, and he really owned it, and it worked out well.
Yeah. So this next one, coding tech. It's hard to, we tried to break this up into two main categories. There's so many different categories when it comes to coding YouTube channels, but coding tech is a channel that lists hundreds of conference videos and talks, and that's their sort of niche, where they reach out to these organizers of conferences and say, hey, can we put this on our channel? And they put it on there. And I think they're at like 500,000 subscribers now, and they're uploading talks weekly. Coding Tech's one of those great ones that I subscribe to, and I look forward to when a new video comes out to sort of stay up to date. And, conferences are expensive, but if you can get the talks for free after the fact, why not, benefit from it?
Yep. Go ahead with the last one.
Oh, yeah. So the last one is one I've just started watching, because apparently a lot of the recruiters that I've worked with, once they find out I have a YouTube channel, tells me that they watch this particular YouTuber, and that's Coding Blonde. Most the sort of critique for a lot of the industry is that there's nothing but white guys. So I definitely wanted to do a little bit of a shout out here. She has good advice. Nice career videos. Seems to be, I don't know her well, but from what I can tell, seems to be very nice, and is very determined to sort of fill this gap of giving a different outlook. Because the software and tech industry, although dominated by men, is slowly growing out of that. And I know, just from talking with the recruiters, they watch her because they're trying to get more technical. And not to say that developers aren't watching her, but they're trying to get more technical, and sometimes it's easier to do that with someone you relate. So Coding Blonde's another great channel to check out.
Yeah, for sure. I've watched her videos. Very well done. A lot of great advice. I would also say just a quick shout out to Faraday Academy, another great developer out there, woman developer, and also Real Tough Candy. She's has a great YouTube channel as well. So I'll give a shout out to those three.
Yeah, I love Real Tough Candy. I was going to do that as sort of a notable mention here. Great sense of humor on her channel, and sort of a very a different style. She's sort of a retro style at times on some of her videos, and I really enjoy them.
Cool. All right, so let's move on. Yeah, there's so many more we could have mentioned. Like just the top of my head, there's like Chris Sean and Coding Phase and a ton of others, but we'll just move on from there. Let's talk about, my story is I started YouTube 3 years ago, really, about 2017. And that's when I really got, really got into YouTube and decided to make it a full-time, not a full-time, but a part-time hobby
Part
that I
time,
wanted
part
to
time, full time.
part-time. It feels like full-time when you're on YouTube, but it was like a part-time, full-time hobby. And it really, I've had a lot of ups and downs, and I wish I knew some of these things when I started. So let's jump into it. So first, I think when we think of the average YouTuber, we're thinking about someone that's, really young, like super charismatic. But honestly, anybody can become a YouTuber. I'm nearly, I'm in my 30s. I think Dylan's in his 30s too. So we're a little bit older demographic. We're not, 20 somethings or teenagers jumping on YouTube. But I think it all matters about what kind of value you can give to people. And that's what's great about being a developer on YouTube is that we have so many things that we know and that we can teach and that we can teach other people on how to do on what to do. And it's a great medium to get out there and do that.
Yeah, and I think one thing that stops a lot of people from starting YouTube channels, unfortunately, is thinking that, oh, it's already been done. Why would I do that? But I mean, in today's day and age, everything's already been done, but you haven't done it, and you can put a different spin on it. And YouTube's unique in that aspect because it's not like traditional media, right? People watch eventually for you, right? They watch for your tutorials, your advice, whatever it is. They want to see what Dylan thinks or what Eric thinks or how Dylan would do this, and they might go for multiple sources. So don't let that scare you away, because you never know what direction it may go, and everyone's channel is slightly different, even if it's in the same space.
Yeah, I think when you look at people, I think we tend as humans to relate to people that kind of look or sound and talk like us, and that's good and bad things. There can be some definite biases that we can form because of that, but that really opens the opportunity that if you put yourself out on YouTube, there's probably a group of people that love to hear from people like you because of your background. Like I have, one thing that I have that not a ton of YouTubers have is I have a traditional computer science background. I still consider myself self-taught in many ways because, they didn't teach web development in my computer science program, but that's a kind of a unique output that I have. I'm also really big into Vue.js. So I think between those two and a few other things, that really separates me from a lot of the other YouTubers out there. And maybe you come from a completely different background. Maybe you've had a hardship in your life. That definitely can be a reason why people would tune into you rather than other people. So let's give some more practical advice on how to start with YouTube. So you kind of have to ask yourself when you're starting a YouTube channel, why do you want to start one? And some common reasons. And by the way, I kind of pulled some of these questions from Free Code Camp and some other resources, and I'll make sure I include those in the show notes. But why are some reasons you want to start one? One is to help others to learn. I think if you're a natural teacher, if you're the person in the office that everyone goes to for questions, you may like this path because helping others to learn has its own gratification. I never thought of myself as a teacher until I started doing YouTube, but then I learned and felt like, wow, this is awesome. Being able to help people, seeing the comments, seeing the feedback, it just made me, really happy. Another one is just to build a body of work that will lead to other career opportunities. And I think Dylan can talk about this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing. I was just telling somebody the other day about, as I was sort of introducing myself and talking about what I do, and then you go down this rabbit hole of, oh, you do YouTube? How did you get started in that? Pretty much the last 5 jobs I've had, all in development, have stemmed from a very early point of me putting videos on YouTube and sort of staying motivated. And I mean, nowadays it's been crazy, and it all stems from YouTube. I mean, being flown out to build courses for LinkedIn Learning, or courses, building courses locally that I put out that people consume, or I build for other platforms, or YouTube led to this podcast, us connecting to working on these side projects, and organizations like me and hire me based off of the fact that I'm out here putting content out, and they can sort of see my body of work and sort of see that passion that goes with it. And it's kind of crazy when you think that these things are happening. And I've had a YouTube channel for maybe 5 years, and or 4 years, and it's just been this sort of exponential growth in different aspects, and it's something I don't see ending anytime soon. I really do love it.
It's really cool to look back at the work that you've done in the last few years and be proud of it and be like, wow, I did create this project from scratch and put it up on my YouTube channel, and hundreds, if not thousands, of people watched it. It's a really cool feeling. One is also, I like this reason. It gives you a reason to learn. So much of the advice out there is like, build a personal project, build this, build that. And those are good reasons. Like maybe you want to build a personal website to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But what happens if you want to learn like something like GraphQL? Like you don't really need GraphQL on your personal website. Yeah, you might be able to use something like Gatsby or Gridsome or something like that. But if you had to make a YouTube video on it, that is a pretty good reason to learn. If you commit yourself to like, I'm going to learn this well enough so I can teach it on a YouTube video, that will definitely give you reason to learn something. I know I was looking back through some of my videos, and I don't think I would have ever learned like all the stuff I've done on GraphQL lately, or some of the intricacies of Node.js, if I didn't have to create a video on it.
Yeah, that's definitely one outlook to take with it. I've always taken a slightly opposite approach to that. Is most YouTubers are gonna go and they're gonna create content for their audience to a degree, or like force themselves to do that. I've always taken the approach that I'm going to do what I want to do, and then I'm just simply sharing it with other people. So it's definitely sort of two different approaches you can take. Now, I will say that you're probably going to be more successful if you sort of cater your YouTube channel to what's in demand and what people are working with, though.
Yeah, that's a good point. There is differences between learning, giving a reason to learn, and then trying to learn. Take what everybody else is saying you should learn and learn it. I don't know. We'll come back to that. I think the last 2 points, I'm going to combine them into one. Is that some people start YouTube channels to like promote their own businesses. There's a lot of businesses that jump into YouTube, and also you can make money off of it. So there's ad revenue, sponsorships, affiliate links, all that. And I think that's okay too. If you go in and you say, hey, I want to make a few bucks, and there's a lot of other advantages, that that's okay too.
Yeah, I sometimes people get weird about money, and we've done whole videos monetizing side projects. I think that was the first video, season 2. People are putting their time and energy into these things, and most of the time, the type of money we're talking about is like below, quarter minimum wage, especially when you're getting going. So it's going to take you a bit to get that ramp up. Usually, some of these channels blow up much faster, and it makes me depressed about my own. But no, but yeah. So great ways to sort of get your name out there and monetize it, not only through the traditional, hey, ad revenue, sponsorships, affiliate links, but between opportunities like we were just talking about.
Exactly. Now you have to also determine your channel style. So this is a really important step when you start a YouTube channel, because you need to figure out, what do you like to do? And I've seen people take completely opposite approaches to this. Some people love to be on camera and do tutorials. They like to explain, kind of code alongs, I guess you could call it too. They have a text editor or code editor open in one side. They have a browser open or an app open in one side, and then they show you how they're creating something. And they'll be typing in the browser or typing in the editor, and they'll be showing you in the browser what's happening. And it's a little bit sterile and boring at times, or it can be really exciting at times. Just depends on kind of your output and how you are creatively creating something. So, and this can also be, you can pick a niche. Maybe you're really into, like, I think I'm really into Vue.js. I'm really into Node. I was into Ember.js for a while. So a lot of my videos, if I'm doing a tutorial, I'm showing you how to jump into Vue.js, how to understand these concepts. If but that doesn't mean you have to do Vue. You could do game development, web development, backend development. I mean, there's so many different topics out there that you can do videos on. On the other hand, there is a really great number of channels that do advice. And at first, I thought that this advice kind of niche on YouTube was oversaturated, but from looking at the channels I know that are out there, there is quite a bit of them, but it's not oversaturated at all. It's actually there's more tutorial channels than advice videos. But this is a great time to just get in front of the camera and just explain your situation. I mean, all of us are in unique situations in our lives. We all come from different backgrounds, so maybe you could talk about how you got your first web development job, or how to get your first job. That's a really popular topic. I know for a while some of the biggest advice videos out there was how they learned how to code in 3 months or 6 months or 1 month for some people. That was like a really interesting topic. And it's also, if you are not afraid to be in front of the camera, this is a good way to do it. It can be terrifying for some people. Of just being able to talk off the cuff for 10 minutes in front of a camera is really tough for some people. But if you're one of those people that can do it, then go ahead. This is definitely, like, Dylan's really good at this. He's done hundreds of advice type videos. And maybe you could talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking that most people aren't going to be natural at this, and myself included. I wish I could find the video, but I remember the first time I did it, I was nervous as hell, and I was like basically whispering because I was like, I shouldn't be talking about anything. Like that was sort of my mentality. But put yourself out there. Get accustomed to hearing your own voice, because that's going to be really weird for a while. I've never known anybody who has first started hearing their own voice and doesn't think they sound like an idiot. Like it's sort of weird to listen to yourself play back in videos and camera and all that. But get comfortable, and you get comfortable by doing. And it's not the end of the world. I will say that, especially once you start throwing out advice videos, and once you start, tutorials are much easier because you're sort of narrating your thought process. But once you put yourself on camera and you're doing advice, it's a little bit more personal. And even if 99% of people are like, hey, that's cool, or hey, I disagree, there's still going to be that 1% that's going to no matter what you do, just be nasty. And you just got to be mentally prepared for that. I don't want that to stop you. I just think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, I would say advice videos are definitely going to get more negativity. You're going to probably get people disagreeing with your advice. And so you might have to deal with deleting comments, ignoring the bad. So that's going to be kind of tough. Also, I would say first time you do a video and you've never done a video and you're just talking in front of the camera for 10 minutes and you watch it over again, you're going to, as Dylan said, you're going to hate your voice, but you're also going to be like, wow, this is really awkward. You'll probably be like, this is kind of cringy. And you can fix that, though, by just getting used to talking to the camera over and over again. And also really think about editing. Editing is really, really, really important. I know some people, I don't think Dylan does too much editing because he's just so natural at talking, and he can just riff on a topic for 20 minutes if he wanted to. But like me, I mean, if you listen to me on this podcast, sometimes I stutter a little bit. I mix up my words sometimes. If you do that on a YouTube video, the nice thing about it is you can go back and edit it. You can delete those awkward pauses, or where you messed up a word, or you can re-record a section. Or the YouTube style of editing nowadays is these like 15 to 20 second cuts. You do basically a cut every 15 to 20 seconds, so that it really flows really well. And you may want to look at things like that just to really improve your your talking head advice type videos. Let's move on to live coding. So I'm really enjoy live coding because it is the most hardcore of hardcore videos that you can do. I'm really surprised when people can do this, but essentially you have no editing involved. You're just jumping in front of a camera, going over your thought process. Usually these are hours long sometimes, and just doing it, just creating a project, interacting with your viewers. A lot of people on Twitch do this. This is more of a Twitch TV, but there are some YouTubers that do this as well. I know one really good live streamer is called Nope Cat, Noop Cat. She has a really cool Twitch channel. I think she uploads to YouTube too, where she's interacting with viewers. She's like coding open source projects. It's pretty neat. I would say this is not the one you want to start with if you're jumping on YouTube, because it is pretty intimidating. And then I'll finish off with competitive programming. There is tons of algorithm type channels, or people just going through and doing leet code or hacker rank, and they're just uploading videos of different algorithms. So let's talk about some of the most important things you need to realize when starting a YouTube channel. And is that, like I mentioned earlier, YouTube is different than a lot of other platforms. While on Twitter, you can just take a few seconds to create a tweet, or maybe you're taking 10 minutes to create a really sophisticated tweet and you're adding a screenshot of something. I mean, YouTube is going to take, creating a video, it's not the same thing. You're going to have to take some thought and effort, and you're going to have to get some software, and we're going to talk about that, and some equipment to put it together. So really, it can be difficult, but there's a few things I would say, some tips and advice that you should keep in mind. And one is to do face cam. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't matter if you're doing a tutorial or if you're doing a advice video or live coding, but people really relate to people's faces, to actual what people look like. And don't worry, you don't have to be Instagram model looking to be on YouTube. You can be a little overweight, you can be a little underweight. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Just make sure you have good lighting, and more importantly, that your audio equipment is well enough for people to actually hear you. But really, don't underestimate having that personal connection with somebody and having a face cam. I went for years without showing my face, or only showing my face in a few videos. And I'd always notice the ones, for the most part, sometimes there's exceptions, but the ones where I actually showed my face usually did better. More people related. I got more comments. The views did better. So just try to be in front of the camera and show yourself. It's okay maybe when you're first starting to, if you're a little shy, to not show your face, to just do a screencast only, but I would highly recommend to show your face. Do you have anything to add on that, Dylan?
Yeah, I do much better because I'm such eye candy as well. That's pretty much it.
And also, I would say be yourself, except I would say that this is kind of cliche of advice to be yourself, but I would also say to try to play up to being on the camera. There's something about like having a presence on camera that you can't get if you aren't energetic, or at least being able to kind of relate to your viewer. And so you have to kind of be a little bit entertaining. I think, now there's always exceptions. You're going to probably, if you're listening right now, you could probably find a YouTube channel that has 150,000 views in one video, and the guy is monotone and he doesn't have any energy, and it's just amazing content. There's exceptions, but for the most part, if you want to build a following, you gotta be entertaining. You gotta be a little energetic. You gotta be a little. I'm not saying start every video with screaming and shouting like a fool, but you have to kind of have an on-screen or on-camera presence, and you need to kind of be bright and show that. And maybe that's being cynical and being very ranty, or maybe that's being really positive. But you have to find that on-screen persona to be a little bit more charismatic. And I think your audience will really relate to that. So if you're more of a quiet and shy and introverted person, you need to kind of break out of that shell if you're going to be on YouTube. So I would say don't be yourself, but try to highlight the times where you're more excited and that you want to be on camera.
Yeah, I think to summarize that, what a lot of people would say is whoever you are, just amplify it a little bit, right? I don't, one of the most important things is being yourself on YouTube, but there's something about the video medium is just making sure that you come through a little bit stronger, I think, than probably your normal personality would be.
Good. That's a good way to summarize it. So let's talk about the setup. So when you create an account on YouTube, I don't know if you did this, Dylan, but I switched over my account a year or two ago, but I created it. You can create your YouTube account as a brand. And if you do it as a brand, it gives you a few extra features, and you can actually add additional people as managers. So I added like one of my buddies as a manager to my account. I should add you too, Dylan. But that way they can always check on my account if I'm out of town. They can respond to comments. You can give them different levels. And it also kind of separates it from your personal YouTube account.
Yeah, I don't think I did this. I don't have any need to do it now, but maybe one day when I start making the big bucks and I can hire somebody to do it for me and just collect checks, I'll consider it.
Big bucks. One thing also, create channel art, and take some time to think about the name of your channel. You can go to places like Fiverr. You can pay some literally $5 to create the channel art for your channel. Obviously, a name. I've gone back and forth on this. I started with my full name, Eric Hanchett, and then I changed my channel name to Program with Eric a few years ago. And I think Dylan, you went from Coding Tutorials 360 to Dylan Israel, so you went the other way. I feel like I wanted
Yeah,
to separate it a little bit. I don't know. I guess it's to each his own.
yeah. Well, to the point of the brand, right? The more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, what is it? Well, what is it I'm trying to do? And at the end of the day, I'm trying to promote myself, right? I mean, I'm trying to put myself out there, get people to know me, this and that, and know my body of work. And so the YouTube channel is just that. It's sort of an extension of my body of work, and that's why I went in the direction that I did.
Good point. I just wanted to make sure that this channel is going to be about programming. This is what you're going to expect if you go to this channel. And I thought like people who are just coming out of nowhere that just happen to see Eric Hanchett, they don't know what type of channel that is. They don't know what to expect. So I wanted to be very clear on that. Also, you might want to just decide what your upload frequency is. There's things called batching, which is really important. So if you decide that you want to put out 2 videos a week, then maybe you take 1 day a week and just record those videos. So maybe on a Monday, that is your recording day, and you just spend however long it takes, 2 or 3 hours, and record the videos, get them edited, get them all done. And that way you're not spending 2 or 3 days a week. I've learned this the hard way. I used to just be like, I'd be the guy that needed to release a video on Wednesday, and I would do it on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock at night. And the pressure and just feeling like, especially if you had a long day and you're really tired, and I have kids and a wife too, so it's really hard for me to record. It would be just it just was hard, and I would do it. I did that for months and maybe years, but now I'm really trying to, and I've done this more often, not always, of just taking at least a few days, maybe a week before the video is due, trying to record that video and then record a second one if I can. Try to record 2 or 3 at a time just to get them all out of the way. So that's a quick tip if you can start batching. And I know do you do that?
I mean, I'm sort of a roller coaster with side projects, right? So, the podcast is easy because we sort of do 1 episode a week. And YouTube, I try to put 2 videos out a week. But the rhythm and the madness, I'm all over the place with what I like to do. So, like before this, I was working on a course, even though I know I need a video by Tuesday, and we're recording this on Sunday. And it's just like I do what I want to do. So it's like there's sort of a Traversa Media used this term when I was sort of saying how I don't like really create plans. I'm sort of off the cuff, but everything's in my head. He called it organized chaos, and that's sort of the way I go about things.
Hey, if it works for you, it works for you. I mean, don't stop something that's working. If the organized chaos kind of works and you could fit it in whenever, that's fine. It only becomes a problem if you find out that you're super stressed, because what can happen on YouTube, and trust me, for someone that's doing it for years, is that pressure to release a video. I do 2 videos a week as well. It just becomes so overwhelming at times. It's like, oh my God, I have to do a video. This sucks. And I would be dreading it some days because I would be coming home from work 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, spend time with the family, eat dinner. It's about 8, 9 o'clock. I'm super tired. I just want to sit down and literally watch Netflix and watch Mr. Robot. But instead, I have to trudge upstairs, try to figure out a topic, record it, and that's okay every now and then. But if you do that every single week, it was literally grinding on me. At one point, I thought about quitting because it was so obnoxious. And then I kind of got a second wind, got a little bit more organized, and it's going much better. Let's talk about equipment real quickly. I know this video is getting long, but let's talk about equipment. I wonder what you use, Dylan, too. So, for you really need three things, three very important things to start a YouTube channel, and that is a microphone. You need to be able to somehow record yourself, and you need software of some sort. So I've gone back and forth. I started with an ATR USB 2100. Yeah, ATR 2100. I'm actually looking at my microphone right now because that's what I'm using. And I used that for years. And it's like a $70 microphone. It works pretty well. It's it just hooks up USB to your computer and it's fine. And then I decided to upgrade after literally like 2 years. So I went to an RE320. It's a condenser microphone. And I definitely feel like that's just much better quality. It just really pops. It really sounds really well. And then on top of that, to get that working onto my computer, I had to buy a Focusrite 2i2, which had the right hookup, so that way it converted it to USB to plug into my computer. What do you have, Dylan?
So I use a Blue Yeti. It's a USB microphone. It's about $100, so it's not super expensive, but not super cheap either. It's great because you can use it for podcasts. If we were in the same room, where you could change where it gets the audio, pretty highly rated. I would say it's a great microphone for a lot for this, and you don't need any additional extensions.
I've heard a lot of good things about the Blue Yeti. I've also, for my video, I've used the Logitech C920. I still use that to this day. It's a 1080p video webcam. I use it in my office. It's getting a little old. I want to upgrade to 4K, but I've looked at different 4K webcams and I'm not really too happy with them. And then I have a Canon EOS M50, which is a digital camera. Does 4K at 30 frames per second. It's not great at 4K. It's better at 1080p. But that one I can carry around. I've been playing around with trying to figure out better ways of doing video. So if I do so my channel is mostly tutorials, but occasionally I do advice videos. I've been trying to play around, like maybe moving locations. I'm still very used to this. Usually, if most YouTubers start off with just the iPhone itself, unless you're doing, of course, we're developers, so we have to be able to do screencasts and things like that. So webcam makes a lot of sense. But if you were doing more blogging or vlogging type videos, I should say, that's like a video log, then like a Canon EOS M50 works great.
Yeah, I just use a webcam because my nowadays your camera on your phone would work just fine. If you have a top tier phone, it's gonna be fantastic. You might have to get an additional microphone to do that, but I just use a webcam nowadays for stuff because it's easier. That's the honest to God truth. One thing I have found about myself with YouTube is that to avoid some of the things that you sort of mentioned about sort of the oh, I'm so drained, oh, I have to do this, is trying to simplify the process for myself so that I enjoy it. And to do that, sometimes I may put out it objectively a less quality in terms of maybe the content's the same, but the video editing and the video quality isn't as high as others, but at least I'm still putting out the video I want, right? So that's one thing that I've sort of learned about myself as I go on this sort of YouTube journey.
That's a good point. If you feel like this is such a pain, yeah, it's okay to just throw yourself in front of a camera and not spend a bunch of time editing. That's fine. I use for software, I use Adobe Premiere. I also use OBS, Open Broadcast System, I think it's called. There's also a couple of versions of OBS. I haven't used the other version of OBS. I heard it's a little bit better. And then Adobe Photoshop.
Yeah, and I used to use Photoshop and Adobe Premiere. I've eventually, I because I do such little editing, I didn't want to pay the $20 or $30 a month it was, and so I switched over to a program for the video editing called DaVinci Resolve, which does pretty much exactly the same stuff as far as I could tell. I should say it's doing the same stuff that I was doing in Premiere. And then for Photoshop, nowadays when most of the time when you're using Photoshop, you're using for thumbnails and stuff like that. I use Canva, which is I guess you would describe it as a digital resource site to create a bunch of. They have templates and they allow you to edit things, but there's also Photopea, which is a browser-based free version of Photoshop that not Photoshop exactly, but has the same functionality. So I use a lot of these items to save myself money and time and all that sort of stuff.
Do you use OBS?
Yeah, I use OBS for my screen recordings and for the webcam videos that I do, all that.
I'd also say too that if you have a MacBook or any Mac, in fact, there is built-in screen recorder through QuickTime, I believe, that you can use to just record yourself if you want to do it that way, and that's fine as well to start off with. And then some other miscellaneous things that I've gotten along the way is green screen. I've a year back, 2 years back, I bought a green screen, and it just really easy to set up with OBS. The biggest thing with a green screen is that you have a good lighting setup. So I use this Alzo digital light setup. So I have these lights around my office that I set up. I know there's some really good ring lights that you can get too. If you just Google ring light or go to Amazon ring light, you can get one, put it right in front, right above your monitor, and that works really well. And I use this microphone clamp stand just to mount my condenser mic on, and then yeah, that's pretty much what I use in my office. It was funny. My wife was like, when I first started putting up all these lights, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're gonna have to take these down every day." I'm like, "Okay," and then like slowly, I just left them up, and now they're just always there. And she walks by it and she shakes her head, but it's my office, I guess.
Hey man, yeah. So you do what you got to do, man.
Go back to our relationships episode. We can talk more about that.
Oh my goodness.
I'm
but on that topic, I have no doubt that at some point when I start dating again, we can do an episode about dating software engineers.
Go back to tabs versus spaces. Remember that episode in Silicon Valley. Anyways, Elgato Link is something I really want to focus on in the future. I'm always like thinking like, how can I make my video production a little bit better? How can I do things? Fortunately, you could just spend thousands and thousands of dollars, but really all you need when you first start is pretty much YouTube, a computer, your iPhone. I mean, you don't need much to get started, but this is what we do. So let's quickly go through some basics of YouTube. So maybe you've if you've fallen along all the way to here, you know the reasons why you should start YouTube. You probably have figured out what type of videos you want to create. You've seen the pros and cons. Now you want to start YouTube. So what are the basics? I think titles and thumbnails are extremely important when you start uploading videos to YouTube. So titles, some kind of quick tips on titles that I've used. Dylan's mentioned earlier in the video that he just makes kind of videos up on what's interesting him at any time. So that's definitely a way to do it. If you're just kind of interested in something that you've been working on at work or just kind of piques your interest, you can just do a video on it. Other ways is you can look at Google searches. You can type inside the YouTube search box at the top a topic, and you could see what videos pop up. And then you can kind of take a look at like the popularity of them, when they were made. Maybe if you see a topic that is really popular, but the last video that was created was 6 months ago or a year ago, maybe you could create a video on that because it seems to be really popular. Or maybe you look up a topic and there's no videos on it. That's probably a good indication that it's probably not going to do very well. Some instances, maybe it's a topic that people are looking for and they just haven't found. I mean, for example, the other day I did a video on Vue.js, and there's some new Vue.js 3. There's some new Vue.js 3 topics that no one's done videos on. So if I search for those, there's no videos. But when I did a video on it, it did really well. But that's not always the case. So keep that in mind. Also, you can also I think this is perfectly fine, is to look at channels that that are sort of like yours, maybe if you're doing an advice video, look at other advice type video channels and see what topics are doing really well in the last few weeks, last 6 months. If you find everybody's making a video on boot camps, it is perfectly okay to create your own boot camp video with your own spin and everything on it. Now, I would be cautious not to steal the exact title that they have, but it's perfectly fine. People do this all the time. People have ripped. I don't want to say ripped off, but people have copied my title from word and created videos. Other advice type channels. It's perfectly fine, and I've done the same thing. I've taken not word for word, but I've taken different ideas from other channels and made videos on it. Let's talk about thumbnails. Dylan already mentioned Canva. That's a great way to create thumbnails. I've also worked with other people to help me create thumbnails. So you got to think on YouTube. So basically, there's an algorithm on YouTube that it's like the silent hand that moves the markets. It's like this entity that no one really knows how it works, but we have a few clues, and it can make or break your channel. In other words, you create a video. There's a couple of places where you get your most views from, and that is suggested videos. That means other people, while they're watching YouTube videos, on the right-hand side, there's a list of other videos. Those are suggested videos, and those are gold mines, because when people are watching a popular video, if they click on your video, then that's where you get a ton of your traffic for, and also search. So I think those two are the highest, kind of the biggest ways you can get views on YouTube, is being on other people's suggested videos, and also when people type in the search bar, searching a topic, and your video coming up near the top. Do you have anything to add to that, Dylan?
Yeah, I would say that that's generally true, especially on sort of the tech side of things, because oftentimes if you're doing tutorials, they're going to be very specific, right? And it may not be, your whole audience may not be interested in React or whatever it is you're working on, but there is a large group of people that are interested in that. And as you go and put out videos that, there's no doubt another video on there, your own stance, your own viewpoint on it. People go, and when you go and you're going to educate yourself on something, you don't go to one source, right? You go and you look at multiple ones, and you want to make sure you do a little scientific method, right? You go and you see what are people saying, repeat the experiment, so on and so forth. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I think suggested videos, YouTube search, I think it's more important in the tech space than perhaps other types of channels.
Yeah, I think search. Usually, people say suggested videos are more important, but I think in tech, especially if you're doing tutorials, I think search is more important. So if you can find those really meaty topics that people are searching for, that will really help you, especially at the beginning. Eventually, you'll have your own following. YouTube will see that these certain people are always watching your videos, and whenever you create a new video, as soon as they open up YouTube.com recommends right on the front page videos that you've watched in the past, or they think that you are more willing to click on. So your videos will start showing up on the front page of YouTube for those people. They're gonna, as they watch other videos, your videos are gonna show up in suggested, and that's gonna really help kind of just bring those regular viewers to your channel. Some things that and by the way, in that respect, since suggested videos are so important, titles and thumbnails are important too, because if you can get a thumbnail that really pops, that sets itself apart from the other thumbnails that are near it, more people are likely to click on it. So there's a thing called click-through rate, that if YouTube sees that if they present your video to 1,000 people and 100 people click on your video, you're more likely to be favored in the YouTube algorithm, meaning that more people are going to see your video as a suggested video, and it'll keep on doing that. Basically, the algorithm will keep showing your video to more and more people until it has diminishing returns. So that's how you get videos that can have 50,000, 100,000, a million views. Some things to keep in track of when you're first starting is don't worry too much about video tags. Don't worry too much about how well your previous videos performed, or your subscriber count. And even, I would say, the upload frequency is not super important either. I would say at least once a week, but I would say don't kill yourself if you can't get, don't try to kill yourself and go daily too. I would say focus on click through rates, make sure your thumbnail is really well done. People want to click on it. Going back to faces, usually people have faces on thumbnails do better than without faces. Not always, but sometimes. Average view duration. So if you can get people to watch your video from start to at least several minutes in, that video is going to be higher in the YouTube algorithm. We know this. All the YouTube experts have said this. YouTube has confirmed this. The time people watch your video is extremely important. So that means if you're doing tutorials, this is really good for us developers, because we can do tutorials and make them 20, 30, 40 minutes long, and maybe only 5% of people watch through that. But that's going to help your average. That's going to help basically the view duration of how long people are watching your videos. So I really think that longer videos help.
Yeah, and one thing from a mental standpoint, most content creators are going to focus on their analytics quite a bit, and they're going to be checking it consistently. And it's something that I would advise against, because what will happen, right? Your subscribers will grow over time as you continue to put content out, but sometimes people get a little obsessed and they sort of they're tracking things daily, and YouTube is the long con, right? It's not something that's going to happen overnight for most channels, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I've done that before. I like check my YouTube stats every day and like, oh, I'm down, and it can be really deceiving too, because you could have a month where just a couple of videos, it could be just one video, just relatively does better than every other video. There's almost this 80-20 rule in YouTube where 80% of your videos are just going to kind of do okay, and then you're going to have 20%, maybe it's even 90-10, and that 10% of videos is going to be more than half the views for the channel sometimes. So you just have to have one or two really amazing videos that go viral, and that will really propel your channel. But those don't always last. So you could have 1 or 2 months where you don't really have those videos that kind of pop, and all of a sudden you'll go from, just to use round numbers, 100,000 views a month, but maybe the next month you're down to 50 or 40. And then 2 months later, another video pops and you're back up to 100,000 or 120. So that is really normal in YouTube world. It's most of your videos are going to just do okay, and then just 1 or 2 are going to just knock it out of the park. And if I remember correctly, Dylan, a quick side note, anecdote, you had a video on Docker which is kind of funny, because I know you were super into web development, but you had a Docker video that did what, 250,000 views or something crazy like that?
Yeah. So I had this idea. This is sort of a funny side tangent. I had this idea where I posted an ad on Upwork. I said, hey, I have this YouTube channel. Obviously, I can't make tutorials about everything, but if you want to make, here's a list of 20 topics that I'm interested in, and I'll pay you $20. I'll put it on my channel. I'll own the video. This is your payment. You'll get credit for making it, but anyhow, so I paid $20 for this Docker video that quite literally makes me like $100 a month. And I don't know if there's just no Docker tutorials out there, but it's I think it sort of pisses me off, because I think it's the best performing video on my entire channel. I didn't even do it. Like, I didn't physically make the video.
Holy crap! I didn't even know that wasn't you doing the video. Do you introduce it?
No, I kid you not, man. This was an idea I had, and it worked really well. I just never followed up with it, and sort of it just played out that way. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, it's a great moneymaker, I guess.
Yeah, that can happen. That's what's cool about YouTube, is that you could just have these crazy videos, and what hopefully happens as you start having these videos that just kind of pop and start getting massive amounts of views, or maybe relatively a lot of views, that eventually your normalcy will start rising. So maybe normally your videos only get 100 views, and then it starts going 200, and then 400 and 800. Maybe you're getting over 1,000 every single video, and that becomes the new normal. I mean, just anecdotally, I'm looking at my user videos right now, 50 most viewed videos, and I think my number one video is on top 5 web development IDs and editors. That almost has 100,000 views, and I did that in 2017. So it's just kind of these views you had no idea would do really well are just popping.
Yeah, another random one that did really well was I was like, you know what really annoyed me was trying to figure out how to flip an image in Premiere. I was like, I can't be the only idiot trying to figure this out. And so I figured it out finally through going through some text tutorial, and I made a video on it. To this day, it makes me like $50 a month, $30 a month, just for, hey, here's a 2-minute video showing you how to flip an image in Premiere Pro.
That's awesome. Let's go through other ways to get traffic. We talked about suggested videos and YouTube search, and that's really the top 2 ways on YouTube. It's not like Twitter or blogs where, a blog will go kind of viral and YouTube will pick it up in search and it'll be shared around a million times. I really think internally is how most YouTube videos get really big. But you can post videos on Facebook pages, Twitter itself. You could submit it to like Free Code Camp. Sometimes Free Code Camp, actually, you can create dedicated videos. I don't think you can do it on both. I don't think you can put your video on YouTube and Free Code Camp. Do you know, Dylan? I don't know how that works.
I don't remember. I know I've put videos on my channel which have been released on Free Code Camp. I don't know if there's any editing or like any minor stuff. I would imagine you could. I know if you're on the same channel, you can't upload the exact same video to your channel.
Yeah, I think YouTube really dislikes that. You don't never want to like take the same video and upload it multiple places. That's true. I know a lot of coding newsletters out there. At one point, newsletters. Honestly, it's funny. I've worked with a few newsletters, and you'll look at it and you'll just see like when I talk about coding newsletters, there's a ton of newsletters out there that are just lists of links to blog articles, to some of them even have like podcast episodes, Twitter tweets. They'll just be lists of things and be like, okay, what's happening in the web development world? And these are the cool new articles that came out. And I swear, I've seen so many of them that don't list YouTube videos at all. It's like a completely different world to these newsletters. Like, oh, there's pretty much every topic out there. There's a YouTube video that's probably been released in the last week. Yep, but they're never listed in these newsletters. Not a lot of them, at least. So, kind of reaching out to these newsletters and be like, hey, I created a YouTube video on something cool. I showed someone how to create, this thing in React, or I gave this tutorial advice. And contacting them and getting your videos on there, it was really important because a lot of newsletters just don't bother looking at YouTube. It's not easy for these newsletters to find out the latest YouTube videos that came out. It's much easier for them to kind of scan through Twitter or look through a platform like dev.to or look through Medium and find the latest articles on things. And then, of course, there's collabs too. That's another way to kind of grow your channel. So I'm going to wrap it up here. We've kind of already touched this. My last section was going to be on how to make money, but we've kind of did a whole episode on this. This is all about, you can make money using sponsorships, YouTube ad revenue, Patreon, affiliates, promoting paid products, or just trying to use this as a way to get a job too.
Yeah, and our side project monetization video, I think we dive in. If you're interested in that, we dive pretty deep into a ton of different ways of how you could be successful with that.
Yeah, and one thing to put a bow on that, listen to that episode, but almost all the ways we mentioned that episode can be directly done on YouTube. And that's one thing that makes YouTube, I think, a little bit of a better platform for a lot of developers that are looking to make a little more extra money than something like Twitter or just creating a blog, because at least on Twitter, like there's no ad revenue on Twitter. I think they just recently added a way that you can post videos and you can get like a little bit of money from them, but it's nothing like the AdSense program on YouTube. YouTube is much better. And it's not really, I think it's much more frowned upon on Twitter to self-promote or to just make tweets out for affiliates and things like that. Well, it's pretty common in YouTube world. Everybody has a description where they put their comments or put their affiliate links, where they put in, their own courses, Patreon links. But on Twitter, it's a lot more tricky to do things like that, and even on your blog, it's a lot different. So that pretty much wraps us up. Any parting words?
Yeah, just give it a shot if you're interested in it. Don't let it be one of those things that you just talk about. And things don't need to be perfect. You're gonna get better over time, but pull the trigger if it's something you're interested in. And every video you'll figure out what works best for you and how to get better and what your channel actually is going to be. It may not be what it starts out with. As you go and you experiment, you may go in a different direction. So just give it a shot.
Yeah, consistency is really important, and make sure that this could take years. I've been doing it for 3 years. I think I've built quite a bit of community and following, but there's plenty of channels that are way bigger than me. I don't try to compare myself to all of them. I just try to do what I enjoy and trying to keep building and doing better.
You know what they say, size doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right. So make sure, guys, to take care of yourself and make sure you take care of others. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you want to find more about what I'm up to, go to dylanisrael.com.
And if you want to know what I'm up to, you can check out my website at eric.video. If you haven't already, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It really helps us out. And if you do, you might even be featured on our next episode. Don't forget to check out the website at selftaughtornot.com. From there, you can sign up for a mailing list where we give away free courses and a bunch of cool stuff. And we'll also let you know when the next episode comes out. And finally, if you didn't know, we have a Facebook group. It's called Code, Tech, and Caffeine. We have over 10,000 members. And you can find the link at selftaughtornot.com. So come join us. We have tons of developers willing to help you guys, mentor you guys. Check it out. Just make sure you go to selftaughtornot.com and check out the Code, Tech, and Caffeine link. Thanks, and take care.